control. You call them, put your name in a bucket for ROTC, and you pick your interest, I guess, or whatever. Hour and a half. Kind of put it up there, but I don't know, like, 6 live early what I got from it. I don't know if I want to.
I will call the Finance Administration meeting back to order. With that, I move to ratify the settlement of the tax appeals filed by the Macaulay Center Incorporated by regarding 243 Steel Road as follows. The fair market value of the property on the 2017 to 2020 grand list is $24,643.01, and the fair market value of the property on the 2016 grand list is $24,600. This is a typo. $24,643,000.01. Is there any discussion from other members of the committee?
No, second the motion.
Okay. With that, move adoption, and we are moving to ratify the amendment. We are missing Ms. Fay from today, but we have 2 votes to vote for us. And without objection, I move that we adjourn the meeting. Are there any objections? All right.
No, Mr. Chair.
All right.
My wife wanted me to because I remember, I don't know, I always had that cough. I had it since I was young. And she goes like,
We have a quorum issue on the council because 3 members of our council are part of the fellowship board, and they need to recuse themselves from the vote, and we have a councilor that's absent. So we are working on the quorum issue and how to get around that. So I appreciate your patience. Sorry, we are going to start with our 6:45 public hearing, which is an amended ordinance permitting certain indoor venues in the CBDH district to stay open until 1 a.m. and operate under a Café Liquor Permit with an age restriction. The meeting's called to order. Roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks.
Present.
Ms. Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Cortez.
Here.
Mr. Davidoff.
Here.
Ms. Fay is absent. Ms. Poland.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney.
Here.
Mr. Winograd. Here. And Mr. Zdanowicz.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Have you received any written comments? Okay, just for, I jumped ahead. Okay, Mr. Ledwith, you go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. The topic of tonight's public hearing, as was just mentioned, is a substitute ordinance pertaining to certain venues in the CBDH district to stay open until 1 a.m. and operate under a Café Liquor Permit with an age restriction. This ordinance was originally presented in a public hearing at our last town council meeting on December 23rd, and is part of the public record. After public comment from a resident who lived in Blueback Square, who felt that the ordinance needed to be more restrictive in limiting the days of the week that an establishment could stay open to 1 a.m., we amended the ordinance to limit a 1 a.m. closing to 1 a.m. Saturday, which is essentially Friday night, and 1 a.m. Sunday, which is Saturday night. Only 2 nights of the week would this type of establishment be allowed to stay open in the CBDH district. Specifically, we amended Section 2 of the resolution, which is Section 177-37(1)C of the Code of the Town of West Hartford, which is hereby repealed, and the following is substitute in lieu of thereof. The following classes and categories of uses listed in 177-6B shall not be permitted to be open to the public between the hours of 12:01 a.m. to 5 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. Saturday and Sunday. Those uses are indoor recreation or amusement facilities, excluding nightclubs, dance halls, or dance clubs. By way of summary, the other change that was presented on the 23rd would allow indoor recreation or amusement facilities at 15,000 square feet or larger in the CBDH district, and that has an entertainment license to operate under a cafe permit with an ability to impose a minimum age of entry. And that concludes the change to the substitute ordinance. turn it back to you, Madam Mayor, for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any
Prior to-
questions from the town manager? Again, we did have a public hearing about this before. We're going to look for public comment, and the Madam Clerk did not receive any written comments. And
This one.
okay. So we have one person that has signed up. I don't know if you would like to speak to this, or please come up, state your name and your role.
Good evening. My name is Karen Johnson. I'm here representing Blueback Square. I put myself on the list prior to speaking with Mr. Ledwith and Mr. Dodge that the prior record of the hearing would be entered into this record. So as long as my comments from last month and my letter that I submitted are part of the record, I have no comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. All right. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this public hearing? All right. I will read into the record letter dated January 6, 2023 from Town Plan and Zoning Commission recommending approval. Are there any other questions from the council? Okay. This public hearing is now adjourned. Is there any objection? Now we are adjourned. Okay. And now we are waiting for our attorneys to let us know about the quorum. You could receive, I don't want people that came out, I want them to be able to speak. I don't know if we can, everybody's here, there is a quorum now, to hear their comments.
I'm with them.
I agree.
Let's go. Can we at least have? Okay. All right. We are calling the 7 p.m. public hearing to order. This is a resolution authorizing the execution of a lease with West Hartford Fellowship Housing Development Corp. For property located at 10 to 50 Starkel Road. We will start with a roll call. Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks?
Present.
Ms. Cantor?
Here.
Mr. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Davidoff?
Here.
Ms. Fay is absent. Ms. Poland?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney? Here. Mr. Winograd? Here. And Mr. Zdanowitz?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. And we will begin with a presentation. Mr. Gorelli, Mark Gorelli, please come. I'm sorry?
You gonna do this one? Yeah.
Oh, yes. We are going to have, I usually do that at the vote. I'm sorry, I didn't know. We have, again, we've had 3 members of the council that have been part of the Fellowship Board, one actually resigned, and we have two now. So we will have recusals from Mr. Cortez and Mr. Davidoff. And I want to thank them for their service on this board. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. And Mr. Wennegreg did resign from the board for the purpose of serving on the council.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service, Ben, and everything. Okay. Go, keep passing. Come on. You don't need
So
it.
she asked me to disconnect.
You don't need it, you're not
so
going.
We provided the presentation ahead of time. Yeah.
Okay.
Dallas, that's thinking on your feet.
What's that?
That's thinking on your feet.
I can think Bender. I was gonna,
You thought of that?
well, we were gonna flip a coin to see which you, which you decided.
I'm the one who messed it up. Hey, last one in, first one out.
Right.
You don't know anything about this yet, anyway. You went to one meeting? Yeah, I know one meeting. Yeah. I would have supported that.
Mr. Grilli, you can, oh, you're waiting for,
So we're waiting for technology.
okay, okay.
So, yeah, when we plug in, it doesn't, we had Plan B, which doesn't seem to be working either. You want to, I plugged in, do you want to try again?
Here we go,
Yeah.
maybe.
You got it on fast forward.
Yeah.
Is Marcus still there?
Yeah, it,
Do you have a different input?
it's not my input. It's, we were notified. We came and tried it yesterday. Same thing happened. And so we provided a PowerPoint presentation.
Why don't you just give it a whirl?
Yeah, absolutely. So apologies. We'll start without and we'll go through on paper. Everyone, I think, has a presentation in front of them. So, Mayor Cantor, council members, members of the public, good evening. My name is Mark Grilli, and I am pleased to be here tonight as the Executive Director of West Hartford Fellowship Housing. In partnership with the town of West Hartford Fellowship Housing has developed 3 times in the past 50 years, and our Board of Directors has since established a master plan to redevelop our aging campus. As part of that strategy, the board created a new nonprofit development corporation to spearhead redevelopment efforts and secure funding. Tonight, we are here to present on our plans for the redevelopment at 10 through 50 Starkel Road and excludes our adjacent property at 60 Starkel, which is a 3-story building that houses 44 units of Section 8 subsidized housing for elderly and disabled. Fellowship Housing as a whole provides affordable studio and one-bedroom apartments designated for seniors and disabled individuals. We offer a range of services such as life and healthcare referrals that enable our residents to remain independent for as long as possible. Our team is continually growing our services to provide a higher level of care, support, and connection to the community. Your next slide that says project overview is a map of our campus. And just to give you a quick brief, that campus includes 24 buildings. The top set of buildings here, these buildings right here, all these are the developments that we're talking about today. This bottom building down here, this is 60 Starkel. That's that 3-story you just heard me talk about. 2 separate leases, one SDD, one special development district, number 87. So that, again, we're just here to talk about the 23 smaller buildings that are up here. Fellowship has developed once in 1970. That's these buildings here. And again in 75, which we call Fellowship 2. That's these buildings here. These buildings make up 169 units. The next page you have is our resident demographics. Just to tell you a little bit about the folks that we serve. We do have a diverse demographic. Our 94% of our residents are age 60 or older. We do have a larger population of females than males, 62 to 38%. About 85% of our residents live alone, and about 15% live with a spouse or others. We have, we're very racially diverse with Hispanic, American Indian, Asian, Black, African American, Native Hawaiian, white, and other multi-race. When we look at our income demographics, average resident, 60% of our residents are at or below $1,300 a month for their income. Another 20% or so are at or below $800 a month. Most rely on Social Security. Some are on retirement. Very few on veterans benefits. Most of our folks, well, not most, but about 36 to 40% are currently on participate in a SNAP or food stamp program. Next slide would be our current development at 10 through 50 Starkel Road is affordable housing for elderly. We do have some units that we have converted over the years for mobility impaired. We've got an 8-acre campus, 23 buildings, 169 apartments. The average studio is 350 square feet with an average rent of $580 a month, and an average 1-bedroom is 450 square feet with an average rent of $650 a month. Currently, we have 20 project-based vouchers. Those are HUD subsidies that help provide subsidized rent for 20 individuals that live in our community. The next screen is a location map. If you looked at this location map, you would see that we are on Starkel Road. This here is the Big Y Plaza, where you've got the senior center, the public library, and post office. You can see those rooftops that I showed you in the campus plan as well. Those are the 2 property locations right there adjacent to the, just behind 60 Starkel, which is behind the firehouse on Route 44. So why redevelop? We look at ADA compliance and accessibility. Currently, for our senior population, a majority of our buildings are 2-story walk-ups, no elevators. Folks who are there with us for a long time, age in place, can't stay there once they've got any challenges with stairs or mobility issues. Energy efficiency, building envelopes no longer meet the building standards of today. Our campus layout is very sprawling. It's long distances to community spaces. So if a resident wants to make it from the backside of the property to our laundry or our community multipurpose space, it's a long walk, whether it's in the heat or the cold in the winter or in the rain. So that campus layout isn't very conducive to our current population. Lack of amenities and technology. Think about the time through COVID. We've got limited resources for connectivity. How are we connected with our residents, but more importantly, how residents connected with family and how they connected with healthcare providers through that time. And lastly, quality of life for our residents very small apartments. They lack any provider or program space, and really there's a huge need for more affordable housing. We have a very long wait list. So tonight, we're looking at the organizational and real estate requirements for redevelopment project. And what those are is we've formed WHFH Development Corp. As a nonprofit development arm of Fellowship Housing. We established the mission of the organization, which is the exact mission of Fellowship Housing. We established it as a 501c3. Our funding, we've established our funding requirements through the Connecticut Housing and Finance Authority, through the Department of Housing, and through federal housing urban development. We've met our land use approvals. If you recall back in 2019, some of you heard our presentation to get us through that special development district land use approvals. And lastly, we are here to talk about our ground lease with the town of West Hartford for a term not to exceed 99 years for the property located at 10 through 50 Starkel Road. That's really our last step as we talk to our funders and secure our private investors. Our current structure at 10 through 50 Starkel is West Hartford Fellowship Housing at the top, and we've got West Hartford Fellowship Housing, Inc. and West Hartford Fellowship Housing 2. Those two entities are under the board of directors for West Hartford Fellowship Housing and have been since we developed back in the early 70s. What we envision for our future structure of 10 through 50 Starkel is, again, West Hartford Fellowship Housing. You've got now the Development Corp., which is the development arm we've talked about. And each time that we go out for tax credit awards, that we apply for funding, they require that we establish a separate organization in order to satisfy the funding. So we've talked about 4 phases of construction in our redevelopment. Each phase would require us to establish a new LLC or a new corporation to house the funding. You can see that this project overview, again, this one slide that gives you what our current property looks like today. These 3 buildings down here will be scheduled to be demolished in order to make way for the development of phase 1, which would incorporate 2 buildings. So these 2, you can see the red takes the place of those 3 buildings, 22 units in the existing buildings, 65 units scheduled to come back. So if we were to look at the summary page, again, 22 units to be demolished, 65 units to be built back in the same location. We'll be expanding our common area space and program space. The 2 buildings with 1 connector between the 2 of them. That main connector is about 1,000 square feet. Between the 2 buildings and the connector, we've got just close to 72,000 square feet of new construction. So you heard me talk about those 3 buildings that would need to be relocated or demolished to make way for new construction. That would require that we relocate the 22 residents that are in those units. We worked very hard to make sure that we do everything we can to relocate those individuals on campus. We've tried to identify any vacancies that come available and utilize those vacancies to relocate individuals to those spaces until the time that the new construction is built, in which case those individuals will then move into the new construction. Under the Uniform Relocation Act, we are required to relocate those households into the new construction at their existing rents of $580 and $650. We have hired dedicated staff to managing the relocation process. We expect that 14 of those 22 residents will have been relocated to units on campuses by early spring, so within the next few months. Currently, we have relocated 9 residents to date on campus. We are looking to locate appropriate housing for the potential remaining residents should construction come before we're able to move everybody into any potential vacancies. And only in phase 1 will residents need to be relocated off campus during construction. So after we're done with phase 1, we'll need to move some residents who will live in the current units that will need to be demolished for phase 2. Those folks will move into the new building that was just built, and then those units get demolished. We build the next phase, and then the next phase of buildings that are scheduled to be demolished, those folks will move into phase 2, and so on. Once we get to phase 3, we'll have a surplus of units over the amount of actual residents that we have on campus. Our goal is to expand our campus by another 95 units of affordable housing. So with our anticipated rent projections for the first year of operations, and we would add anywhere between $100 and $200 for utility allowances based on the unit sizes, we have 3 categories of units that fall into different average median income rates. So we have 13 units that fall within a 30% average median income. So residents who fall within that will experience net rents at or below current rents for studios and small one-bedroom units. Folks who fall into the 50% of AMI, there's 26 units that are set aside for 50% of AMI, will experience net rates that are equivalent to current rates for one-bedroom units today. And then 60% of AMI, there's 26 units that are set aside at 60%, and residents who fall within that percentage, those net rates will be at or above current rents for large one-bedroom and two-bedroom units. Residents will be responsible to pay for their own utilities. Again, you heard me mention the utility allowances based on the unit sizes. Currently, projected monthly rents are approximately $30 under the low-income housing tax credit rent maximum. So the tax credit, the low-income housing tax credit sets a maximum allowable rent for all of those units. Currently, the program that we have put together, or the pro forma we've put together, is approximately about $30 under the maximum rents for each one of those units. We anticipate a 2 to 3% increase per year based on extended projections and regulatory limits, keeping in mind that we are restricted by that cap. These projections are based on current income limits, market conditions, and final specified utility equipment. So the utility equipment is the energy, the things that take up energy, and what kind of units, how much energy they would be using. We fully expect these buildings to be extremely efficient and considerably more efficient than the current buildings we have in place. The rents and projected expenses will be subject to final approval with our lenders and our investment partners. The next slide identifies our funding sources. So we've got a slide for our project funding, and it identifies where all the different funding sources come into play to make up the dollars that we need to not only build the building, but to remain and capture those affordable rents. So the first line is syndicated equity. We've got about $1.8 million in low-income housing tax credits. That's what we were awarded from the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority. That $1.8 million in tax credits translates to about $16.5 million in private investment. So private investors purchase those tax credits at about 90 to 92 cents on the dollar. The Connecticut Housing Finance Authority is providing a soft mortgage for us of about $1.8 million, and the Department of Housing has established a $4 million state bond, which we have been awarded. There'll be about $2.3 million in federal home funds, and there'll be about $1 million of an affiliate loan. There's some deferred development, developer fees, and the energy incentive rebates that I spoke about earlier, for a total permanent cost of about $26.5 million. The new affordable housing that will be provided to the town of West Hartford, or in the town of West Hartford, in phase 1, we have 65 units of new construction, minus the 22 units, which will add 43 units of new affordable housing in West Hartford. When we go to phase 2, we'll have a net new units of 16. When we go to phase 3, we'll have an additional 27 new units. And lastly, in phase 4, we'll add another 9 units. So that's the 95 units, anticipated 95 units that we've been speaking about. If you were to look at the additional slides for phasing, this is what Phase 2 would look like. We talked about Phase 1 and these two buildings at the bottom of the page. These next two buildings would be added at the top, and that would be the next phase. So that would be Phase 1 and Phase 2. Again, this is all Fellowship 2 back here, right? So as we go to Phase 3, we would then add a 4-story building here in this corner of the property and take up more of the additional housing. And lastly, the final phase would complete the overall campus. There'd be no more existing buildings with the exception of 60 Starkel. These would be all of the buildings within the 4 phases of construction that we planned for our master plan. As far as our project timeline is concerned, we have it in 3 buckets: town approvals, secure partners, and then construction. So we're here now, January 2023, for our public hearing and a resolution of the lease assignment and extension. We expect to secure our partners. This past November, we identified our general contractor in this past December, and currently into this month, we have securing our private investor who is purchasing the tax credits. We expect to close sometime in April of 2023 with CHFA and DOH. So that would put us into construction some 30 days after closing. So the spring of 2023 into the fall of 2024, where we would be completing Phase 1 construction. I've got down here as well the resident relocation process, which you've heard me talk about already. And then the remainder of these slides are really renderings of what we expect fellowship housing to look like. This would be the view from Starkel Road or from the library looking across the street at Starkel Road. The building on this side of the drawing is Phase 1. This other half here would be part of Phase 2. This is just the same image of the buildings, only from the courtyard side, so the back side of the buildings. This next rendering is the multipurpose community space that we anticipate having, about double the size of the current space we have today. And the rest are just some elevations, architectural elevations that identify the different elevations of the buildings. And that concludes my presentation. I do have members of the Board of Directors here with me today. Should there be any questions that we might be more appropriately answered by a Board of Directors. However, we're here and available. Apologize for the technology.
There's a lot of weird things happening tonight. That's okay. I would thank you, Mr. Gurley. And we will open it up to questions, but I want to make sure we get to public comment. So if you have any questions, just maybe briefly, and we can say that. Okay. Can we look at the sign-up sheet? I know people have been waiting a little too long. And while we're doing that, Madam Clerk, have you received any written comments? No, she has not, so. Okay, thank you very much. So the sign-up sheet, the first person I have is Jessica Chatfield. And please state your name and address for the record. And then the next person, just so you know, is Claire Kendall.
Hi, my name is Jessica Chatfield. I live at 10 Starkel Road, Apartment C. Thank you. I feel very brave being here.
You are brave, but don't be afraid. Really, honestly, we want to hear from you.
Thank you. So I have lived at West Hartford Fellowship Housing for the last 12 and a half years. I have been blessed to receive Social Security disability after I could no longer continue my nursing RN career years back. My building is in Phase 2 of the new construction. I was initially granted a lease there with a HUD subsidy, and I was not mobility impaired. While I no longer receive a HUD subsidy, I have been grateful to have a safe, affordable, steady place to live at West Hartford Fellowship Housing. The development project is a welcome up-leveling in the quality of life for all residents there. I have come tonight to address my interest in Section 3 of the proposal, provision of rental housing and related facilities, services for the elderly and mobility impaired during the lease term of the lease. I notice the clear wording, elderly and mobility impaired, in this new proposal, and I have been curious, concerned. I have shared my angst with our property manager, assistant property manager, and Mark, the executive director of Development Corporation. I have experienced them as kind, supportive, and they have told me that I will continue to have a place there and in the new apartments to come. You will be grandfathered in. When I requested that they might put this in writing, they each shared that they were not able to do that. Each has been affirming of the intention of beneficence of the board governing West Hartford Fellowship Housing for all current disabled residents under the age of 65 to continue to live affordably there now and after the new building is completed. In September 2019, I spoke here at the town hall meeting when the proposal for the construction at West Hartford Fellowship Housing was presented. My primary concern was the wording of the proposal that said elderly housing development and did not include disabled. I walked up to the podium without an assistive device and with a steady gait. Upon sharing my concerns with the council at the meeting, the responses from those presenting were only assurances that disabled residents were indeed included. Perhaps it was a matter of semantics. It has recently come to my awareness that it is not and has never been the board's mission to have non-mobility impaired disabled individuals under 65 years of age living there. The board's mission since inception is clearly focused on our elderly population. As someone whose profession was primarily centered on providing skilled nursing care for the elderly population, I cannot argue the beneficence of this intention. With the current lack of truly affordable housing options available here in West Hartford and in Connecticut, I am curious about where one might live with a disability. I am invited to trust the process of life, and I am holding space that only the highest best outcomes will unfold for all involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chatfield. And the next, thank you very much. The next speaker is Ms. Kindle, Claire Kindle, and then after that, Mary, and I'm sorry, I think it's Donna again. Thank you, Mary.
Hi, I thought I would speak last, actually, to see if I couldn't respond to some of the residents' concerns. Claire Kindle, President of West Hartford Fellowship Housing Development Corp. So if I may, just go to the end, I can that way perhaps address some of those concerns because we're aware of them and we're happy to address them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Kindle. Mary Donegan, and then Gary Smith. It's very possible. So, this is for this public hearing. So if you would like, I can cross you off that and you can sign up on the general, maybe Mr. Dodge, you can help. Thank you. Okay. And then, and we will call, if you miss the sign up, we will call for you anyway. And Gary Smith, I don't know if that's the same thing as well. Okay, very good. So that's all that I had signed up. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to this public hearing? All right, I don't see anybody. So Ms. Kindle, you are back up.
Claire Kindle, President of West Hartford Fellowship Housing Development Corp., and here to thank the council and for all of their support. We are at the end of a very long road. Our current
lease with the town is, I think, more than 25 years left. But we need a 99-year lease in order to do affordable housing development under the low-income housing tax credit. Through this council's support, we were able to get the state to give us low-income housing tax credits, which is a remarkable accomplishment, and we couldn't be more thrilled. And so we're here to say, you know, there's some structural changes that needed to be made in the lease in order to qualify for the financing, and we needed a longer term. And so we really greatly appreciate this council's consideration of modifying the lease so that we can do that. I wanted to address Ms. Chatfield, who I thought gave beautiful comments. The structure of the phases, of the 4 phases, is that all current residents for Phase 2 will go into the extra housing that's being built in Phase 1. And all of those current residents actually have a guaranteed, it's a federal statute, so they're automatically in. So if you're a current resident, you automatically have a spot. And then for Phase 2, people from Phase 3 will move in. And then by Phase 3, people from Phase 4 will move in, but we'll have extra spots. And then Phase 4 will have extra spots. Our organization for the past almost over 50 years has been primarily elderly. However, when we built a Fellowship 3, which is not part of tonight, it's 60 Starkel, we expanded it to the language of the times, which was mobility impaired. We interpret that now as disabled. And obviously, we could fill our entire complex with only disabled, but we wanted to make a mix. But we're not doing any sort of promises of mixes until we have open spaces, because right now our priority is for our current residents. That said, it has always been the intention of the board and the commitment of the board to include disabled residents under the age of 62 in the development. And so this is not something we're saying if you're under 62, you can't live there if you're disabled. It's always been our case, and it's been our policy. It's what we've done. So it's affirmative for Fellowship 3, but we're planning to do that as well for the new phases of Phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. We are not setting any quotas or percentages for that at this time, because we're basically just rolling all new residents into the all current residents into the new buildings, so that the only people who have to be relocated off campus are as Phase 1, to the extent we don't find room on the campus. I don't know if that made it clearer. I hope so. I guess the bottom line is, everybody in Phase 2 will receive a letter guaranteeing them an apartment when Phase 2 comes. And so Ms. Chatfield will have her piece of paper. I mean, every one of them will get, everybody in Phase 1 has already gotten a piece of paper, and she will have a piece of paper. So, you know, we couldn't get rid of her if we wanted to, and we don't want to, is I guess the bottom line, is we want to keep our disabled residents. We want to keep all of our residents.
Thank you, Ms. Kendall. All right, so the sign-up sheet, is there anybody else, again, one more time, that would like to speak to this public hearing? Okay. Any questions from Town Council? Ms. Blanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess the question would probably be addressed to Ms. Kendall, since she spoke on behalf of the board. For the disabled residents that are under age 62, would you just elaborate for me? So how far down does that go? I'm sorry. So,
what do you mean by how far down?
So,
if they're 18 and they're disabled, they can live there.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then for, I believe, the resident who came up looking for the piece of paper, and this is just probably a general note. If she doesn't get that piece of paper, what would you advise her to do, or what would be the period of time that she should expect that documentation to come through?
When we get approved for Phase 2 and get the funding, we're only on Phase 1, so she's not impacted at all right now. So when we have Phase 2, then every resident who would be affected will get that piece of paper. Right now, she's in her apartment, there's no change for her. There's nothing that happens to her. When we do the new phase, we're not on phase 2 right now, we're just on phase 1. But if for some reason we didn't give her that piece of paper, she could go to HUD, she could go to CHFA, she could call you. I mean, it's an illegal requirement. She gets a piece of paper when the time comes to relocate her.
Thank you for that clarification. And then for the residents who are going to be relocated, what was my question? I had a question. Hold on, give me a minute, Claire. For those that's going to be relocated, what kind of assistance will they receive in their relocation?
Tons. We pay for everything. We pay to move them. They keep the same rent level. We find them the place. We make sure, they are held harmless. And this is, we would do it anyways. But even if we didn't, it's legally required. So they receive full and unconditional support in the relocation, both off campus or into their new place, and then back when the new construction is done.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
I'm all set.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Are there other questions or? All right, Ms. Pullen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question regarding Section 3. It currently says the corporate purpose of the WHFH Development Corporation must be the provision of rental housing and related facilities and services for the elderly and mobility impaired. And I'm wondering, do we mean you have to be both, or do we mean and or?
And or.
And is that implied through that language?
That's how we've interpreted it through our 50 years, or since we've done phase 3. So it has been either or. It's not required to be both.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Any other comments or questions? All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So if there are no more questions, one more to look around, we will close the public hearing without objection. I move that we adjourn. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we are adjourned, and we will begin the town council meeting. Just give me 1 minute to shift some papers around. Just as I was advised by our lawyers, we are not going to be voting on fellowship tonight. This has to be referred to our Town Planning and Zoning Commission to complete its required review. So this will be voted on January 24th, and you can watch it televised. But I just want to make sure that you understand that if you want to leave, if you're waiting for this vote, I don't want you to be tied to, to wait. So, and just to let you know. Okay, but if you want to stay, you are more than welcome, and thank you very much for coming out. All right, we are calling the January 10th council meeting to order, and I'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can rise, please do. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Ms. LeBrun?
Ms. Blanks?
Present.
Ms. Cantor?
Here.
Mr. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Davidoff?
Here.
Ms. Fay is absent. Ms. Poland?
Here.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Winograd? And Mr. Zdanowitz?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am going to use a point of privilege to one of the things we're voting on is related to this, but there has been a tremendous amount of lost life on our roads in Connecticut and right here in West Hartford. And there's been more than I'm reading right now, but most recently, we lost Quinton Williams, state representative for Middletown. On Christmas morning, we lost Novelette Bailey, Faye Dawson Judkins, and Raheem Dante Barry Nelson. On December 21st, we lost Carlos Galarza from Bridgeport. And then on December 20th, we lost Eugenia Urofsky. And I just want all of us to take a moment of silence and reflect upon these losses. Thank you very much. All right. So we will begin with a public forum and look to people that are signed up. And please, if you could keep your state your name and address for the record, keep your comments to 3 minutes so we can get through the business of our hearing everybody and the business of our agenda. And if you haven't signed up and you want to speak, that's fine. I will call on you. So far, we just have one person signed up, Mary Donegan. That's right, you are.
Okay, excellent.
Name and address for the record.
All right, thank you. I am Mary Donegan. I live at 243 North Quaker Lane in West Hartford. I want to say thank you to Mayor Cantor, Deputy Mayor Sweeney, and Sweeney. I'm so sorry, I know you're my neighbor. And members of the West Hartford Town Council for placing Vision Zero on the agenda tonight and allowing us to speak about it. I am a professor at UConn. I am an urban planner, and so this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. It's amazing how I can speak in front of all these students and not get nervous, and yet here I am. So tonight I am speaking to you as a board member of Bike West Hartford. Bike West Hartford's goals include first, advocating for biking, walking, and mass transit infrastructure and equity across all neighborhoods in West Hartford, and second, building stronger community engagement with biking, walking, and mass transit. Our organization strongly supports the town's adoption of a Vision Zero task force and action plan as cornerstones of broader infrastructure, policy, and engagement changes that must take place in town. Earlier this month, after 5 people died on West Hartford streets and more were injured, we published an open letter to the town. In that letter, we asked the town to adopt a Vision Zero policy to address the worrying trend of increased deaths and injuries. In that letter, we also asked that the town do the following. First, use crash data to prioritize actionable steps. We included UConn crash data in our open letter, but we also ask that you consider data from walk audits, from data collected from Stantec for West Hartford Center, Kerry Provost pedestrian and bicycle fatality maps, and other sources that the town has. Second, prioritize planning and engineering responses, especially trial traffic calming infrastructure in high crash areas. We specifically mentioned roundabouts and raised crosswalks in our letter, but we encourage a host of interventions and improvements, including protected and separated bike lanes, pedestrian medians, bus bump outs, and many other wonderful things. Third, be proactive. We highlighted expanding the contract for Stantec to redesign safer streets for all of West Hartford Center, but I would also add rethinking New Park Ave plans, especially to include a separated cycle track. Fourth, actively empower citizens and value our input and participation in the planning process, especially residents who are most at risk on our streets and often are left out of the planning process. To put it in the language of Vision Zero, we are therefore asking that the town focus the majority of its energy on engineering and engagement. We also ask that any action plan emerging from any Vision Zero task force adhere to plan quality best practices. We do not want another plan that will sit on a shelf. We want a plan that includes goals with corresponding action items, along with implementation deadlines and clear departmental and staff assignments for each item. In addition to creating a Vision Zero committee that will take a careful, years-long approach to addressing traffic violence, we applaud the town's recent statement of looking to Stamford for guidance. After recent pedestrian deaths in their city, Stamford backed quick-build tactical urbanism projects and has rolled out engineering solutions using concrete planters, flex posts, and other low-cost tools. We're very excited to see these changes coming to West Hartford over the coming weeks and months. We would like to remind the town that the research behind interventions like these has been done, and it is clear. They save lives, they make quality of life better for everyone, including people in cars. Finally, we urge the town to frame Vision Zero as not an end, but as a starting point. Reducing deaths and injuries should be a priority, but more broadly, the town should use all arms of government to create a welcoming environment that promotes walking, biking, rolling, and taking transit for the well-being of our local and regional communities, as well as the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Donegan. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to something that's on our agenda that wasn't the subject of a public hearing? Come on up. State your name and address for the record.
I'm Gary Smith, and I live on Wooding Lane, 313 Wooding Lane in West Hartford. And I'm here because last summer, my wife and I are sitting on the front porch, and a car comes up Wooding Lane at about 50 miles an hour and takes the mirror off the left side of our car, which was parked by the curb in the street. This is not the first time this has happened, not to us, but to others on the street. I'm the grandfather of 3 children who live on this street. There are approximately, we think, about 15 children. And if you include Forest, which runs into it, probably 20 children on this street. You have a school, Whiting Lane School up at the end, and you have a senior living. And anytime in the summer, you have children there, and you have wheelchairs going up and down that street. Every day, I see at least 2 or 3 cars going 50 miles an hour up and down Whiting Lane. Yes, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, a person was killed down at the end of the boulevard. Something has to be done there. You have a school, you have elderly housing, you have all kinds of children. So please think about it. That's why I'm here tonight, not just for myself, but also for some neighbors as well as we talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right, is there anybody else? Please come up. Oh, we can get you. Yep, be right here, right at the table. The table is fine.
Sorry, I didn't prepare anything. I mostly wanted to hear what people were going to say. My name is, oh shoot, we just messed this up. My name is Kelly Hammond Book. I live at 95 Maplewood Lane. I was the pedestrian who was hit on Main Street on December 17th. I spent 15 days in the hospital. I had suffered 2 broken legs, 2 broken cervical vertebrae that have been fused, 2 surgeries on my right leg, which may or may not be usable in the future, spinal nerve injuries, traumatic brain injury, and prior to my injury, I was a nurse practitioner at Hartford Hospital in endocrinology. I provided care for individuals with diabetes and gender-affirming hormone care for individuals who are transitioning. I also provided on a part-time basis pediatric primary care to our immediate community. And I don't know that this is something that I'm going to
be able to do after what has happened. And after a long discussion with the police, it seems like all of us are at fault. We all made mistakes. And how is this an intersection that walks into our flagship library in our community where job seekers might want to utilize services, where children are utilizing services, where elderly adults are utilizing services? How is this intersection so poorly designed that almost every person who's come to visit me, and the community has been so wonderful coming to see me since I've been home from the hospital, says, yeah, it's hard to see that light, or it's weird because there's parking and there's a crosswalk, and I'm not sure which is the crosswalk and which is the parking. And when you're sitting with the police and saying, but I thought a crosswalk was, and they tell you, no ma'am, you're misunderstanding. How in our community can we fix this? And then beyond that, I live at 95 Maplewood Avenue, and my son attends Whiting Lane Elementary School. And he walks to school as a 5th grader, and he crosses the street, and I now have to tell him, since I've been home every morning, those 15 seconds are the most important 15 seconds of your life when you're crossing the street. Don't bounce your basketball. Look both ways 6 times. I know that there are parents in our neighborhood of children who attend. We think about West Hartford. Our elementary schools are neighborhood schools. Our kids walk to school. They ride their bikes to school. A crosswalk is not the safe place that we've told our kids it is in West Hartford right now. We see people routinely being impatient and driving around individuals who have stopped for pedestrians and crosswalks. We see people speeding down streets like Whiting Lane and Maplewood Avenue, which are residential streets, and have tons of children. I almost think that the previous speaker's estimate is low based on what I know my son's neighborhood. And parents are saying, I'm scared to let my kid walk to school. We live in a town now where parents are saying, I'm scared to let my kids walk to school. I'm scared I might not be able to do my job again. I hope that I can. I have plenty of time ahead of me to recover, but I didn't prepare anything, and I kind of wish I had, but I just wanted to say that, you know, one thing, it's not just the people who die, it's the people who survive too, you know, because while my injuries might not have been life-threatening, they're definitely life-altering. And I think that it's really important to recognize that we live in a town right now where people don't feel safe.
Thank you very much, Kelly, and we wish you a very, very robust and meaningful recovery. And I know we're going to make change, but we don't usually go back and forth, but I needed to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah. All right. And I saw another hand up. Okay, so why don't you come on up, and you can stand and just wait for each other. If you can stand, yeah. State your name and address, and if you could keep it to 3 minutes, that'd be great.
Hello, my name is Susanna Gorsa.
Can you actually, yes, you need to speak into the mic, thank you.
So I've been having a problem walking across the street in my area. Is there a way that I could draw on a board? Do you have a board that I can draw on to show you what it looks like?
If you can describe as best as possible.
Okay, so we have a bus across the street on New Britain Avenue at the intersection right there of Ridgewood The highway is just there, 84. The light at the intersection there, I often have to walk across, and I have to hit the button to walk across. And I will wait. And I've noticed that a lot of people in cars, they will keep going. They're not even paying attention to me. They're not paying attention when the light changes. And I have the light that's telling me I'm allowed to walk. And people will still drive right through it. So I'm wondering if maybe they need some type. There is a light up there that tells them that someone's walking. And I will see them still come driving right through, and I'm trying to wave them down and let them know I'm trying to walk. I'm very scared. I've seen it so many times that it makes me very nervous to cross the street there. It's very dangerous for me and others as well. And that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And just your name and address for the record.
Yep, it's Susanna Gorman. I live on Putnam Avenue in West Hartford.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate it. And we can get more information from you. You can. Okay. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Michael Himsa, Michaelahimsa. I live at 1115 Boulevard. I'm a parent of a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. I'm extremely concerned about the high rate of speed going not only down Boulevard, but also up Boulevard. It's amazing how fast vehicles can get going on that road, especially if they hit all the green lights or are attempting to hit the green lights or catch the orange lights. It's terrifying. I will not let my children ride around our block. I also realized I'm native to Minnesota. I realized why I'm so uncomfortable with my children going around our block. It's also because we have a lot of driveways. And I remember growing up, we had alleys. So there were 2 points of crossing where vehicles and pedestrians crossed instead of 40 on a block. I will never let them cross Boulevard on their own. Maybe when they're like 21. Just kidding. I do echo the safety of roundabouts. A simple Google search will show that there's many fewer impact points versus a traditional intersection. I'm amazed at how large the intersections are in Connecticut and West Hartford specifically. I think it's dangerous for vehicles, let alone pedestrians, let alone pedestrians who are blind or deaf-blind. I'm a sign language interpreter, and so I actually knew the individual who was struck and killed in Hartford. We need physical barriers to protect pedestrians from vehicles. I know we have a new law that allows people to signal that they're going to cross the street. I wouldn't trust that for anything. People don't know the laws. A lot of people don't read new laws, you know. I don't trust crosswalks because we think that we should be able to cross there, but drivers who don't follow the laws probably don't even realize that there's a crosswalk there. So I don't think we can rely on laws to protect us. And I don't think we can rely on people to protect us because people are distracted. They're not paying attention at all. And I think we need physical barriers to protect us, including roundabouts. I really like the traffic calming measures around West Hartford Center. I think they're beautiful and they're effective. And I would also like to echo that I would not want this to be a 5-year project. I know things take time. I don't expect it overnight, but we should be able to do some great things in a reasonable amount of time. So thank you for your time and your attention to this matter.
Thank you very much, Michael. Okay, next speaker.
Hello, Ryan Howe. I live at 598 Fern Street. I just wanted to get up here and kind of echo a lot of what we've already been hearing, revolving around the excessive speeds in town, whether it be on some of the more well-traveled roads like Mountain and Fern and Boulevard and Quaker and, but then also, as we've heard from other residents, some of the much more residential roads like Whiting and Meadowbrook and such like that. I think it's a problem that's pervasive all throughout town, and it's, as others have said, completely unacceptable that in a town like this, we as residents can't feel safe. I have 2 young children of my own that are constantly walking across the street to the park, up the street to school, into the center of town. As a family, we're always doing that. So biking, walking, all of it. It's just I would love to be able to do it and feel safe and have my family feel safe, but unfortunately, it's increasingly not the case. And I would echo a lot of the the things that people are saying in terms of infrastructure changes that I would like to see that have been mentioned. I think that both in terms of infrastructure and incentives, and by incentives, I would mean people being penalized for breaking the law and for their excessive speeds. It seems to me that currently, most of the people that are being penalized are the ones that are being penalized by losing sleep and losing their lives and losing their professions and such. I don't see enough, in terms of penalties going in the other direction. So as far as the infrastructure projects that have been mentioned, I would like to echo those and mostly just wanted to share my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. All right, is there anybody else? Okay.
My name is Arthur Spivak, and I want to thank the mayor and the board for their time that they're involved in the good work that you're doing. We have a golden apple here. It's called West Hartford. And I go to various areas all over the Northeast, and people know about us. They really do, whatever business they're in. The problem that we have is not really here. Well, I preface this. I think people like to point fingers, and they're pointing a finger at West Hartford saying, you guys have a traffic problem. I was going to volunteer for the police review board about a year ago, and I looked into some various things. There is a bill called, it's Bill 6004. It's for police accountability. This problem should really be discussed at the state capitol. I mean, I like hearing all your comments. Wherever you go, this problem exists. People are running red lights wherever you go, whether it's Providence, Rhode Island, or Nashua, New Hampshire. People go through stop signs. There's no respect for traffic or the police anymore. People have lost respect. The problem is, I think, is this Bill 6004, which happens to be a 46-page document. If you ever have time, if you don't want to watch television some night, you should read it. It's hard maybe to understand. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that's where our problem exists. I mean, there are speed bumps, there are radar guns. What do we have, 7 traffic officers in West Hartford? You could put 15 traffic people out, and that's not going to stop these kids that are stealing cars and racing through our town. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Mr. Spivak. Is there anybody else? Okay, I don't see anybody else, so we will move on to number... Oh, I'm sorry. Please come up, since name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Susan Patterson, and I live at 1745 Asylum Avenue here in West Hartford. And we have seen time and time again cars driving so fast down Asylum Avenue. There's often crashes at the intersection of Trout Brook and Asylum. I remember just a few years ago, we were going to Washington, D.C. for my class reunion. And I was running a little bit late for a home game that was happening. And so we were on our way. I was running a little bit late to be leaving for that. And I was driving a little bit just a little bit faster over the speed limit, and I did get a ticket for it. And I saw the sign there had a radar gun on top of it, and so I had to pay the speeding ticket. And that's my one speeding ticket I've ever had. And so, but maybe we need to have these set up in more locations. The signs with the radar guns that actually send out these speeding tickets to people that are speeding and make people pay the fee. Maybe that's one way that we can incentivize people to stop driving so fast. Sorry, this was in Washington, D.C. that this happened, but I think that might be a good idea here.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. You are correct. It is not legal in Connecticut, so, and in DC it is, so. Thank you. Now we will go, is there any other speakers? Okay, thank you all for speaking. Thank you, Deb. All right, number 4, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, without objections, I move that items 5A through 5D be placed on the consent calendar.
Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, the items are placed on consent. Mr. Sweeney?
Madam Mayor, without objection, I move the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we go to number 6, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption. Sorry. Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the amended ordinance permitting certain indoor venues in the CBDH district to stay open until 1 a.m. and operate under a Café Liquor Permit with an age restriction.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, would you like to just really summarize this item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier this evening, we provided an overview of a substitute ordinance permitting certain venues in the CBDH district to stay open until 1 a.m. Saturday and 1 a.m. Sunday, and to operate under a Café Liquor Permit with an age restriction. You'll recall that on December 21st, we held a public hearing on the ordinance permitting certain venues in the CBDH district to stay open until 1 a.m. with no specification days of the week that the later time would be permitted. Following testimony on the 21st, we amended the original ordinance to include the limitation to 1 a.m. Saturday and 1 a.m. Sunday, which is really, as we know, Friday and Saturday night. This ordinance was reviewed by the Community Planning and Economic Development Committee and did receive a positive referral from the Town Plan and Zoning Commission at its December 5th meeting, and then again at its January 4th meeting for the substitute language. I will turn it back to you, Madam Mayor, at this point for discussion and vote.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any comments about this particular item? So, yeah, this was a subject of a public hearing and previously and amended to this. And I think a few of us had stated at the public hearing that this it's important for us to work with one of our largest development developers and in town and make sure that we are planning for the future as retail and commerce changes. And this we think does that well. So if there's no comments from my colleagues, Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I recall during our first public hearing on the original ordinance before we got to the amended, there was a memo submitted by Blueback Square which outlined that things have changed in the last 20 years with respect to how the district has evolved, and it's continuing to evolve. Because in order to be successful, it cannot remain stagnant. So the new owners of Blueback Square Charter Realty have taken the necessary steps to chart a course that they believe will be successful economically, as well as meet the needs of our community with respect to what people are looking for in various shopping and entertainment districts. So hopefully this change to our ordinance with respect to time frame will prove to be helpful and will allow the owners the flexibility necessary to recruit a quality tenant that's able to be successful. And I think that's what we deem to be the most important. We need to have people frequent our central business district, and we want to encourage people to come to West Hartford, to enjoy West Hartford, to enjoy the variety of offerings that we have with respect to shopping, professional services, and entertainment. And this is one small step in that direction.
Thank you, Mr. David Bosa. Mr. Sweeney.
I just wanted to, on the record, I really appreciate the flexibility and the investment that Blueback has put into the town, and really appreciated the presentation they gave to the council, which feels now like 3 years ago, but it was just at the end of last year. But I do want to just say this: there is a saying that that people are familiar with from a famous comic book movie: "With great power comes great responsibility." I do want to make that very clear that this is something that we are providing a lot of flexibility for Blueback and a lot of movement here for a particular venue, and we've heard from the surrounding neighbors about how they really want to ensure that Blueback does keep an eye on what happens here, and I know that they will, but I just wanted to be clear that we really just need this as a precedent setting, that we are making this flexibility. We just hope that it is respected on the other side, because there are residents that have talked to us about this and are concerned about this. And at the same time, I'm also excited about this opportunity, and as Mr. Davidoff said, with new development and new kind of new horizons in that area. I just am excited about it, but I also just want to be clear that we really want and need this to be held up on the other side with Blueback too. So with that, I will also be supporting that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Any other comments? All right, we will go to roll call. Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Blanks?
Yes.
Ms. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff?
Yes.
Ms. Fay is absent. Ms. Poland?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Winograd?
Yes.
And Mr. Zdanowitz?
Yes.
It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Letter B, Mr. Sweeney.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, without objection, I move that this resolution authorizing the execution of a lease with West Hartford Fellowship Housing Development Corporation of property located at 10-50 Starkel Road be postponed to the town's council meeting on January 24th, 2023, in order for the town plan and zoning commission to complete its required review.
Is there any objection? There being no objection, the motion is adopted. Number 7, Mr. Sweeney.
Yes. Madam Mayor, without objection, I move that we receive immediately and refer to Town Planning, Zoning, Design Review Advisory Committee and set for a public hearing on February 14th, 2023, the application of Steel Road LLC to amend the boundaries of the SDD at 139 located at 243 Steel Road and SDD number 33 located at 253-275 Steel Road and 2021 Albany Avenue by rezoning a portion of the SDD number 139 to SDD 33 and rezoning a portion of SDD 33 and SDD 139.
Yep. The dates of the without objection.
Yep. Already.
Oh, you did that already?
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the motion is adopted. B, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the resolution amending the fiscal year 2021-2022 general fund budget to fund transfers to the non-capital, non-reoccurring expenditure fund, the risk management fund, the utility service fund, and accrue expenditures related to tax assessment appeals.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, would you like to do an overview?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. The following resolution is the result of an exceptionally strong financial year whereby our revenues exceeded our expenditures, resulting in a $4.1 million surplus. This surplus is the result of several factors, such as our tax collection rate, which came in at 99.3% versus a budgeted 99.1%, resulting in an additional $1.9 million in revenue. We also received an additional $700,000 from FEMA that was not budgeted for, an additional $775,000 in building permits due to the excessive development that is occurring around town, as well as an additional $600,000 in conveyance taxes. As a result of the surplus, we are recommending that $1.6 million be transferred to our capital non-recurring expenditure fund to be available for future appropriations, such as the purchase of police automobiles. We would set up a contingency for tax assessment appeals in the amount of $400,000. We would transfer $500,000 into our risk management fund to offset health program costs. The inflation we're experiencing as a country and as a state, certainly having a negative impact on our healthcare costs, on medical inflation, and as we are starting to see these costs begin to escalate following a number of years at flat or negative healthcare increases, this $500,000 would help offset potential future healthcare increases. We would also set aside $400,000 in our utility services fund to offset possible future rate increases. The remaining balance of the surplus, approximately $1.2 million, would be applied to the unreserved fund balance, which will increase our current ratio from 9.1% to 9.2%, demonstrating exceptionally sound fiscal practices to our rating agencies as we are about to begin the issuance of bonds for the upcoming fiscal year, and we'll be meeting with rating agencies in the coming weeks. So demonstrating that increase in our unreserved fund balance would be received well by both Moody's and Standard & Poor's. So I will pause there, turn it back to you, Madam Mayor, for any questions that the council had.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And these offsets, these different funds are to even out future costs and hopefully benefit our residents, taxpayers in future years, whether it's 1 or 2 years. Yes.
Correct.
So, is there any comments or questions? Mr. Sweeney.
No, Madam Mayor, other than we discussed this item earlier today at the Finance Revenue Committee meeting, and there was support, and I move that we support it.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. All right, with that, we will go to a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next, Mr. Sweeney, C.
Yes. Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the resolution implementing the Vision Zero initiative to support safe, healthy, and equitable mobility.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and we've heard from a number of our residents that have been, that are either suffering right now from an accident or have fear of being in an accident. This group of, fairly close group of tragedies, injury, and death hit our community very, very hard. And we're brokenhearted by it, and really shook. We have been doing things in town. We adopted a complete streets policy. It was we were one of the First Communities, and Ms. Kindle actually was, who was here earlier, was instrumental in that, and have made some significant improvements to our roads, but it's not working. This should not happen and doesn't need to happen, and it's up to us to make our roads safer. Just to give you a little context, U.S. traffic deaths jumped in early 2022 to a 20-year high, according to federal transportation officials. Nearly 43,000 people died in 2021. That's the highest annual death toll since 2005. This figure prompted the U.S. Transportation Secretary to state that America faces a crisis on its roads. There is focus through the National Roadway Safety Strategy and the Infrastructure Bill. Secretary Buttigieg called for urgent and sustained action. Behind each of these numbers is a life tragically lost and a family left behind, and that's not even addressing the people injured, as we heard from Kelly, and all that there's life transforming if it's not life ending. We've all experienced an increase in dangerous driving, and this was somebody that there's no. This was a quote from actually a local professor. While there is no one causative factor, the reckless behavior is likely the confluence of, from this person's perspective, increase in impaired driving, drug and alcohol use, lack of safety constraints, the opportunities for speeding and reckless driving given fewer cars on the road, which is linked to feelings of liberation. Some people say that it's less enforcement as well. Those are things that we have heard. Most drivers feel they can safely take their eyes off the road for 0 to 2 seconds, but a car can travel the length of a football field in 5 seconds at 55 miles per hour. How much damage can be done in that period of time? Many accidents are due to distracted driving, and this is likely underreported. Vision Zero, which we're adopting, or we're directing our town manager to it, we are, as a council, directing our town manager to do tonight. Vision Zero was started in Sweden during the 90s. The Swedish architects of Vision Zero set the only justifiable fatality target for road traffic as 0. It is not a slogan or a tagline, not even in a program. It's a fundamentally different way to approach traffic safety, and you heard some of that tonight from our speakers. Business as usual is not enough, as systemic change is needed to be made for meaningful progress. Building and sustaining leadership, collaboration, and accountability among diverse stakeholders calls for all of us to be more proactive, as with other public health hazards, identifying risks and taking steps to prevent injuries by designing transportation systems in a way that collisions will not result in fatal or serious injury. In explaining how Vision Zero works from traditional approaches to traffic safety, a traditional approach might say traffic deaths are inevitable. It requires perfect human behavior to not have bad things happen. They focus on preventing collisions, and that it's up to individuals for their responsibility, and saving lives is expensive. Vision Zero says traffic deaths are preventable. It integrates human failing in the approach to take where weakness might exist and change the way roads work, prevent fatal and severe crashes by a systems approach, and saving lives doesn't need to be expensive. People make mistakes. Design road systems that ensure that they do not result in severe injury or death. Improving the roadway environment and policies, including speed management and enforcement. This is a multidisciplinary approach to bring together diverse and necessary stakeholders to address a really complex problem. The important collaboration of local traffic planners, engineers, policymakers, public health officials have not been the norm. Many factors contribute to safe mobility, including roadway design, speeds, behaviors, technology, and policies. We need to set clear goals to achieve a shared goal of 0 fatalities and severe injuries. The question, rather than what we can do, becomes what must we do? This is a holistic approach. All upstream factors, design guidelines, public participation, policy, and vehicle regulations are all things that need to float up. We won't achieve a a safe system by just redesigning roads, though. We must manage speeds and policies like automated enforcement, where we'll try everything. Vision Zero also relies heavily on data and data-driven decision-making, a safe system perspective, collecting data not only where crashes happen, but also demographics, enforcement, hospital injuries, etc. And it's not enough to just collect the data, it needs to be made public in order to facilitate transparency and accountability and assist the public in monitoring progress towards zero. This is also an equity issue. The most vulnerable road users are most at risk. We need to include all of our community members to be involved in this effort. So the core elements are leadership and commitment, equity and engagement, safe roadways and safe speeds, data-driven approach, transparency, and accountability. 4.5 years ago, North America recognized that we can't educate or enforce our way out of today's traffic safety problems. So 4.5 years ago, the first city adopted Vision Zero, and that was New York City. A difficult city to do this, for sure. But that traffic fatality reduction was 28%, and their injury reduction was even more. So we need to prioritize safe travel over speedy travel. Safe speeds, safe people, safe vehicles. So some of the questions that we'll be asking are, where are the crashes and injuries most prevalent in town? What is causing the crash-related injuries and deaths? And what can we do to prevent those crashes? We will urge all residents to make a commitment. And this was one I took from Hoboken, but I think it's important, and I think something that we can base something off of. Because I know my choices matter. This is a pledge. I pledge to respect the safety of my community and eliminate all traffic-related injuries and deaths by in our community, it will be 2033, by committing the following actions. I will yield to the most vulnerable road user regardless of the rules of the road. Follow all rules and regulations governing the use of the streets. Always look out for pedestrians at crosswalks and turn slowly around corners. When I see a pedestrian crossing the street, I will yield right of way. Never park where I obstruct visibility in a crosswalk. Parking too close to a crosswalk is not only illegal, but also blocks sight lines for approaching pedestrians, bicyclists, and other drivers. Look out by looking up. While distracted driving is one of the leading causes of crashes, it is also one of the most preventable. Therefore, when I'm behind the wheel, I will keep my eyes on the street. Never drive if I am impaired, even slightly, by drugs and alcohol. Drive extra slowly and cautiously around schools and parks. If I'm dropping off a child at school, I pledge to not park in a manner that prevents pedestrians, bicyclists, and other drivers from safely using the street. Remember that I am behind the wheel. My vehicle can take someone's life or cause serious harm, regardless of which user violates the rules. Never flee a crash scene, and always call 911 if I hit a pedestrian or cyclist. And where possible, not to exceed 20 miles per hour, because above that, that's when serious injury happens to a pedestrian. We as a town, and I know the town manager will guide this process, will use tactical urbanism to experiment with road design changes to slow drivers, protect pedestrians and bicyclists, and improve traffic flow. We will have a portal set up where input from the public can be received along with general feedback. We expect creative and new pilot redesigns to emerge so they can be experienced by their residents, and I am sure we will get a lot of feedback. And public safety and public works will be all a part of the process. So 45 communities in the U.S. As of, actually I think it's 46 because I don't think Stanford was listed on the federal site, but we will tap into those communities for best practices. And you know, I am inspired by the possibilities to really transform our community to be one of the safest communities in the country. So I hope you will join me in this endeavor. We're going to need everybody, and we will do things within the year as the plan develops. This is a plan that will be designed by a task force that will, the task force will have expertise from town and even from our regional council of governments. We will be in constant contact with our DOT if they're not officially on the task force. We have volunteers that have already submitted their names. Some of them are people that have expertise in urban planning, like Ms. Donegan, or people that might have emphasis in behavior modification and communication. All of those things are going to be really, really important. But as we identify things, we will make changes. We are not going to wait a year to eliminate deaths and serious injuries by 2033, which is the goal, and hopefully before. But we will implement change as we identify them. So, any comments, Mr. Sweeney?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Mayor, for taking the lead on this and for obviously planning this out with the town staff, and the input that we've had from the community has been very, very helpful. I also just want to say, Kelly, thank you for coming out tonight. Very brave of you and very moving, and we're just wishing you and praying for the best for you. And anything you need, please feel free to reach out to us. I live right across from Morley School. As I see Ms. Donegan walking her kids to school, I know there's a few other people in the Morley district. I grew up in that area. In fact, lost a classmate in third grade to a vehicle, to an issue on Ardmore. Remember Jarney? Was hit at like 5 o'clock at night going to the Morley Winterfest. This is not new. And, as a father of 3 young kids, I have gone to that crosswalk at Morley that now has a blinking light at it. And I have stood there and watched cars fly right through it while I'm standing there with 2 kids on bikes and a stroller, not carrying. We have lights, we have flashlights, not caring. And it is troubling, but I am encouraged by the amount of people that are interested in making this right. I will say that some of the things that need to be done are huge things, and we are going to need significant support from the community to do some of these things. I think we've talked a lot and heard a lot about roundabouts in West Hartford Center. That is a monster of a taking. I'm not saying that it cannot be done, but it will need support. And so when I say if all the folks that we heard from over the last couple of weeks, we will need your support as we move down that road if that's the path that this is chosen. But yeah, this has been a hard couple of weeks for all of us here. I've been checking in with Mr. Ledwith because he's been dealing with this all the time. This is a big deal for all of us. This is a mentality that I think of the drivers that we were seeing all over the place. I myself was really good friends with Mr. Williams, who, passed away. I saw a statistic the other day that we have had 23 wrong way deaths in the last year. That is a 80% increase from the year prior. These numbers are wild, and they're impacting people. And I think one of the speakers earlier today said, it's impacting innocent people that are just going about, walking down the street, hanging out with their kids, doing what they should be doing, or in Mr. Williams' case, just driving home on the right side of the road and someone came on the wrong side of the highway. I mean, these are human behaviors that can be changed, I think. And I think what is encouraging about the turnout here tonight and the input we've had from the community is that there's clearly a willingness to change. And I think that, at least what I've seen, is that when there's a willingness to change, that will happen. And I'm excited about what we are going to do. And I'm sorry that it's had to take this long to get here. But I do think that we are at a tipping point. And I appreciate you, Mayor, for really grabbing this and moving us forward, and Mr. Ledwith and the town staff are really just embracing this. It's no longer as a price tag. This is about, saving people's lives. We can't have any more weeks like we've had to close out and begin this year. It's unacceptable. And I will just say that I will commit to doing this. I know that the mayor is committed, but, you know, the folks that are here, you have advocates and supporters sitting right here that will make change in the coming time. So thank you, Mayor, and I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Zdanowitz.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to thank you and the town manager for taking the lead, as was mentioned, on Vision Zero. This is, when we do budgets, it maybe gets political. This is not a political issue. This is a safety issue. There is no letters after our name of what party we belong to on something like this. And I think I speak for the rest of the group here. This is about safety for our town and making sure that we provide an environment that is conducive to living a safe and healthy life here in West Hartford. And with that, Vision Zero, though, is, I'll steal something from my previous history from the Board of Ed. We always talk about continuous improvement in the schools. Continuous improvement in here, too. We're not going to get everything right 2 days from now, 5 days from now, 7 days from now, and a week from now. It has to have, it's an evolution of safety. It's a continuous improvement model. It has to be looked at. Management is cause, everything else is effect. It has to be managed through the process and continuously looked at from all perspectives for this to work. And I know that's the plan. So I just emphasize that. It was a hard few weeks. Getting these emails is not something that we get them and we get updates from the police, and it's just not a great email, obviously, and those are tough to read. So my heart goes out to everybody out there. I have 3 kids and myself. We have to cross Mountain Road to get to school at Northfeld, and thank God we had a great crosswalk, but kids often wanted to go play after that. Crosswalk guard, and you know, that's a busy street as well, and you know, my heart went out all the time, and you know, we would come back. I would actually give the kids like kind of an action plan on what to do and how to do it. Every time they crossed, I go, you know, look both ways. It wasn't just once. I did it all the time because I was concerned back then too. So this is something that I know everybody's on board with. I don't think that there's anyone out there that can say that they're not on board with this. And very often you don't get 100% on everything. And we may not get 100% on this, but I bet you we get 99.9999 like Ivory soap, I guess, right? I can't imagine someone not supporting this and going forward with this plan. So I just want to thank everyone involved, and I look forward to the continuous improvement that this town is so duly needed.
Thank you, Mr. Zdanowitz. Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would be remiss if I didn't thank you and the manager for getting this on our first agenda to discuss what needs to be done. It's clear to everyone in the community that common sense needs to prevail in our community, in our state, in our region. We have one life to live. Life is precious. I always felt that everybody has good until they've demonstrated otherwise. And I'm certain that our community will rally around the initiatives and the proposals that are put forward because they're reasonable, they make common sense, they're attainable, and at the end of the day, they provide the quality of life that we all seek to have here in West Hartford. And each email or text that we received in the month of December was more and more tragic to read, and we just would say it amongst ourselves, I just can't believe there's been another incident, another family's been impacted, another person's life has been upended. This has got to stop. And lately we've been having conversations amongst ourselves as we're more in tune as to people just running through red lights, pedestrians not paying attention, people on bicycles not paying attention. We understand that roadways have multiple users to them, but there has to be mutual respect for all the users, and there needs to be decency, and really, there's really no rush to get anywhere, okay? It's okay if you're late for something. I'd rather be late for something than have an outcome where you've definitely changed someone else's life. So get off the telephone, slow down, be more aware of your circumstances, and I think that our community can do this. We really can. And we probably go back decades. There was a movement in West Hartford, I think it was called the Speed Club, and people had bumper stickers, and it told people just slow down. And as the mayor pointed out, yeah, well, 20 miles an hour is not bad. But, when you're going 40, 45 miles an hour on streets that are designed not for that type of speed, you're going to get bad outcomes. And bad outcomes are not something we really want to have here in town. So we're all guilty at one time or another of not being, traffic angels. But you know what? We really need to be more cognizant of our surroundings, of how we drive, of how we walk, how we bike. We all can coexist. And I think that's really important. And I think it's often said that when anyone has a problem, the first step to recovery is accepting the fact that you have a problem. So tonight, our community has taken that initial step. We've identified that there is a problem, and we're accepting the fact that this problem exists. And it's not something we're just going to dust under the rug. We're going to address it head on and come to very concrete, reasonable, objective solutions that hopefully will result in 0 injuries and 0 deaths moving forward. So thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Manager, for your efforts so far.
Thank you, Mr. David. Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to echo what my other colleagues said. Thank you, and thank you, Town Manager, for putting this together as fast as you guys did. We often talk about ways of, improving our streets. This town is growing, and our concerns is always with this growth, how does it impact traffic? Traffic is always a topic of conversation, and I think that we mentioned quite often, calming, the neighborhoods where we have this growth, so it's been on top of our mind. But but this Vision Zero that you put forth puts it even higher, and it shows the commitment that we have. Some of the challenges, how do we get people involved? Before I continue, I want to say, my heart goes out to the families of Carlos, Eugenia, Bob O'Neill, Raheem, Faye, Novlet, and also to Kelly. This is, it stops here, or, and hopefully not 10 years. And I know there's only so much we can do as a council, and this is a start, but we have to come together as a community, and this Vision Zero brings people to the table that can make this happen. State DOT, a lot of the issues that we have is how do we deal with the issues on the Britton Avenue, on some of these state roads that we have, and we have a lot of car accidents on, but then there's that barrier of getting state DOT involved, and this does that. So I want to thank you again for putting this forward.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Ms. Blanks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Ludwig, to the town staff, public safety, and all the work that you have done. Many members of our community who stepped up and volunteered and said, I want to be a part of this. And for also the family of many of the residents who've lost their loved one, especially during this holiday time. My heart really goes out to you, and I can identify with you because I walk those same streets. In fact, the other evening when I was walking, I saw the little memorial up for Eugenia, and it made me emotional because I walked that same street, and I walked in the evening, and I see many cars not obeying the traffic signals that we have posted, which are posted for a reason. And I find myself now pausing and actually connecting with the motorists before I step out into the street, because I want to make sure that they see me and that I see them. And so when they acknowledge that they see me, then I'm going to cross. I'm not going to just take it for granted anymore, because I want to live a life of longevity, and I want that for all of our residents here in town. So of course I support this because it's all about safety. We want 0 deaths and we want 0 injuries. I'm looking at Kelly and her husband, and I'm listening to you as you come forward, and you're a healthcare provider. Now you're on the other end of being a patient. And the impact is so far and reaching, because that has impacted your employer, that has impacted your team. Everybody is now down, especially during this period of time when healthcare is very critical. You worry about your son. I have 3 girls who are now young adults. And the same thing that you worry about, I worried about that when they were old enough to walk to school. In fact, when they wanted to walk to school, I told them, no, I'm still going to drive you because I need to be sure that you're going to come back home. And of course, when they're at that age of 5th grade, they want to be independent. No, I want to walk. So I'm like, okay, well, how do I know that you're going to be safe? Do I get you a cell phone? And I got the cell phone for them. And just as Mark stated, we went through the plan in terms of what route you're going to take. What road is going to be the less busiest road? Is it going to be South Quaker Lane? Is it going to be Oakwood? What time of day is going to be the most traveled? So all these things go through your head as a parent. And when you're an elderly person, which I'm approaching in the retirement phase, and I want to walk in the evening, I want to make sure that the motorists are adhering to our traffic laws. I shouldn't have to be worrying about someone going 40 or 50 miles an hour in a 25 mile per hour speed zone. However, on my street the other day, I listened to a car racing down the street, and I'm saying, what is going on? So as my colleague stated, we got to pay attention. Okay, we have to slow down. It's not that serious. If you're late, like Councilor Davidoff said, pull over. Get off the phone, pull over, park, call whomever you're speeding towards, and let them know that you're going to be late. That way, you don't end up injuring somebody or killing somebody, and now you're in a bigger pickle than you would have if you just simply picked up the phone and pulled over, and again, obeying the law. Now, on the flip side of that, we as pedestrians have to be responsible, because I also observe pedestrians walking against the traffic stop sign, the big red hand saying stop and wait. However, many of us think that we can beat that, and we're going to go ahead and step out. So we also have to hold ourselves accountable to what we're doing and when we're doing it. I've also listened on meetings when we are walking, the clothing that we're wearing, we have to be cognizant of that. We shouldn't be in dark clothing. Or if we're going to be in dark clothing, make sure we have a flashlight or something that is going to draw attention to us when we're walking at night. We shouldn't be crossing over the busy state highway because we don't want to walk a few yards down to the crosswalk. So all of these things we also need to be cognizant, because it has to be a partnership and it has to be a comprehensive approach, because we can't leave it up to one group of people, whether it's our town professionals, whether it's the town council, whether it's our police department. We all have to be the eyes and the ears, and we have to talk to one another as well, because in our conversations, we hear each other. You know, I was speeding, you know, or I always speed down that road, you know, so sometimes we have to say, you know what, you have to stop doing that, because one day it's not going to end up okay. So we have to hold each other accountable. It's not that serious. Let's slow down and pay attention and just obey the law that's already on the books. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you especially for your leadership on this issue. You know, it's been a tough few weeks. And when we heard about the incident, the crashes occurring and the deaths occurring on Christmas, Christmas Eve. we all kind of knew you would be stepping right up and jumping right in. And it's what we expect, but we shouldn't think that that's the norm. We know that you're always there. And this plan, and it is necessary. And I'm so impressed by sort of hearing how administration and Rick and under your leadership have jumped forward on this, and with the rest of our council. I'm proud of you all for your leadership on this. Not long ago, a year or two, I can't even keep track under COVID anymore, we declared a climate emergency, dedicating ourselves to continuous work, that in all we do, in every budget discussion, every public works expenditure throughout our town, that we'll be looking at the impact on climate. And what we're doing tonight, in effect, is similar. We're not using the same words, emergency or crisis, but that's what we're doing. We're saying this is a crisis, it needs a solution, and we now need to take that into consideration on all decisions we make. Most people know, I ride my bike around a lot. I'm an urban cyclist. Usually works out, doesn't always. And people have seen me. I walk a lot too. People have seen me, I'm sure, occasionally on the side of the road yelling at somebody as they go by. We've all experienced that, I think. We all understand the issues of personal responsibility, of what's been stated before, of slowing down, especially, of course, But I think we also have to understand that, again, a lot of these problems, most of the problems are structural. It's the infrastructure. When we have an intersection that takes forever to get across, when you have a lack of crosswalks in a long stretch, people are going to cross. We know this. That's not a flaw by the individual. That is anticipated. A lot of college campuses, you're waiting to see where all the dirt paths are, and that's where you put the sidewalks. Because people have their flow, and you've created those paths by putting buildings in certain places. You may not realize it, but eventually you see the path, and that you say, hey, I guess everybody's walking there. So using the data, looking where people are, in fact, in roads is so crucial, and I think that will be, that perspective will really help us. But getting back to, I had to say something else on that. As people, and I've been watching on social media, people are coming up with ideas, and someone will talk about a traffic circle, and then somebody else will say, yeah, but wear a light or something, and put it more on individual responsibility. And I think, for those advocates who really immersed in the literature and understand the infrastructure being really the biggest issue, I see some frustration at those responses. And what I just want to urge everybody in town is to really treat this, and as well link it back to climate change. The answer is everything. In climate change, you look at a list of what can we do to meet our goals, and the biggest things you could do are 2%, 1%. Nuclear, maybe 3%. Nothing is a solution. And the response to the problem is then you have to do everything. And if you add all those little steps together, you can have an impact. So in response to, if people suggest, talk about the individual responsibility or lights or anything else, yeah, it's great, that too, and we'll do that, and we'll do this. Yes, we'll have lower speed limits, and we'll redesign roads. Yes, we'll encourage people not to walk on walk in the road wearing dark clothing, sure, but we're also going to add raised crosswalks and have better signage and everything else. All these things together. And we also will continue and must continue to encourage each other to slow down, But I'll note, the physics of an accident is not just the speed, but it's also the bulk, the size of the mass. Bigger cars, hoods that that are 5 feet high and you can't see a pedestrian. That's part of what's going around nationally. And listen, none of us are perfect, in our consumer choices, but those bigger vehicles are more dangerous. Simply the issue, and people should recognize that. Or electric vehicles, and now doing an electric truck that's bigger than a regular SUV, and with a faster acceleration. These things are also not really great for the environment and are making our roads deadlier. So, we're going to have to look, and I'm so excited by this task force. It's going to have to look at everything, and with data, find the things that work. And again, I'm really hopeful that we'll come together as a town, that we'll understand that there are going to be inconveniences from this. This is not, perfection. It might take a little longer to get from one side of town to the other. And that's okay. It's not only okay, it's a good thing. And if the result is, as I hope it will be, that more people are biking and more people are walking, which equals fewer people driving cars and fewer people doing that short trip in town, that's all going to be great, again, not only for our safety, but also for the planet itself. Because the climate change, again, is an emergency. It is a crisis. And by helping make our roads safer, we're also encouraging the exact kind of behavior we need to adopt. So thank you. Of course, I'll support this. And again, thank you all to my colleagues for all their work on this.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. And last but not least, Ms. Pullo.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues around the table. I want to align my comments with yours, and to Mr. Manager, and also thank you to the residents who've come forward with some really thoughtful ideas. I know it's easy to just express anger and frustration, but I think what we've seen in our town in the last month or so has been a true discussion with ideas brought forward, so I want to thank you for that. In every other policy area, we have already recognized that solutions come not only from proactive individual changes in behavior, but also from the redesign of systems and structures. So this is why we have child-proof caps on medication, because despite parents' best efforts to keep dangerous medications away from kids found a way to get into medications, and so the bottles were redesigned to make it harder for kids to get in. It's why ATM machines have changed the order of operations, where it used to be people would accidentally leave their cards in the machine because they'd get their cash and they'd walk away. And now, when maybe you've noticed, when you go and take money out of an ATM machine, you take your card back first before the cash comes out. And that has worked to reduce the number of people who have left their cards in the machine. So system changes can have a much bigger impact on our individual behavior than we think. And sometimes those system changes make things harder. Like, it is kind of hard to open some of those child-proof caps or the blister packs, those are the worst. But they can help with safety, and that's what this is about. So here with road design, we also have to consider both individual responsibility and the structures and systems. This task force, sometimes people think of task forces as a stall tactic by policymakers. But I hope that our residents have heard enough commitment from everyone here tonight, both around this table and the folks who came and spoke to us a little while ago during public comment, as well as the people who've taken the time to email us, to call us, and just share their ideas with us, to realize that this task force is going to be a true working group coming forward with solutions. We need the advice of experts, and that's what we're going to get. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some actions taken, and I want people to realize that this is not like, oh, 5 years from now, we're going to take an action, but there's going to be some short-term, midterm, and long-term solutions. So these actions to redesign our roads and improve safety for all, and I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Okay, anything further? So we will, we can do voice vote. Mr., I don't, wait. Yeah. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. D, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of resolution appropriating grant funding awarded under the Sustainable Materials Management Grant Program.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledbetter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This resolution was the subject of a recent Public Works Facilities and Sustainability Committee meeting held last month, and will appropriate a grant in the amount of $106,000 under the Sustainability Materials Management Grant Program administered by the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. The town of West Hartford, as we know, will participate in a year-long pilot program, which is projected to reduce our waste by up to 40%, increase recycling, and offer curbside collection of food waste for residents. The pilot program will include 700 households with trash and food waste collected separately in designated trash bags and a separate food waste container. You may recall that we had made the decision back in December to put this pilot program out to bid. A bid conference was held last week, and we expect a decision to be made later this month. The formal pilot program will be rolled out following the award of the bid, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council had as a follow-up to this resolution. Again, we discussed this at length at our Public Works Facilities and Sustainability Committee back in December. Also, I know our Director of Public Works is in the crowd tonight, John Phillips. Want to thank him for his leadership and his vision. Under his leadership, I'm 100% confident that we will get through the waste management crisis that is before us as a town, as a state, and as a country. So thank you, through you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Mr. Winograd, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to note that there was some, mainly by letter, controversy over the bidding process itself, but there was no controversy about taking the money. So I think this is a vote on taking the money. I'd certainly urge our support.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Any other comments or? All right, I just want to say thank you to Mr. Phillips for your incredible leadership and foresight on all of this. And we're so far, unfortunately, we're a little behind you on this, and it's one of my regrets, but we will run to get there, to catch up. So thank you, keep pushing us, and I appreciate it very much. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we now go to the report for the town manager. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll keep my report brief this evening, and we'll mention one thing. We have our Board of Education our superintendent will present his budget on Tuesday, March 7th of 2023, and we will hold a special meeting. I wanted to let the council know that we will be doing this, holding a special meeting on Wednesday, March 8th to present the town manager's budget. So it's a little bit off. It was originally scheduled for March 14th. Based on the way the calendar is set up, that's a little bit too late. So we're moving that budget presentation up a week to March 8th to accommodate that schedule. Thank you. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that the council had regarding anything.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And I just do want to thank you for your heart and your leadership, because I know a lot's going to be a lot has already been asked of you, but a lot more is going to be asked of you, and I just want to thank you because I know it's
my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Sweeney.
When is the mayor's presentation, Mr. Ledwith,
The mayor's State of the Town address will take place on February 28th.
Yeah, I think so. I think so, at the Pound House.
Yeah, get your tickets while they last.
Oh, yeah. He's given the wrong date. Yeah, it'll be packed. All right, okay. Any questions for the town manager? Comments, questions? All right, thank you very much. Okay, quick, now, oh, no, Corporation Counsel, sorry, Mr. Dodge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no formal report, and we have no need for an executive session tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Any questions for Corporation Counsel? Okay, and then I think we are, no communications, and on to announcements. Martin Luther King, this is our 27th annual celebration that takes place in our Town Hall Auditorium from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And I will give a quick welcome. We have Commissioner Vanessa Durantes, Commissioner of Department of Children and Families, DCF, an advocate of human rights and public servant. Reverend Fred Ward of First Church of Christ will give we'll offer a prayer. Dr. Lorna Thomas Farquharson, Chair of the Board of Education, State Representative Tammy Exum of Wasco, Afaf Alber from Conard High, and Zella Jackson of Hall High School will all participate. Also, the event features musical performances by Conard High School Jazz Combo, King Philip Middle School Singers, and Hall High School Choraleers. It is always such a moving and inspirational way to celebrate this true hero and visionary. Flu vaccine clinic, West Hartford Bloomfield Health District will hold the flu clinic on Wednesday, January 18th from 4 to 6 p.m. No appointment is necessary. This is at Smith School, 64 St. James Street. Suicide prevention and Narcan training. The West Hartford Bloomfield Health District is hosting free naloxone and suicide prevention training for community members to learn how to identify and prevent opioid overdose, recognize the warning signs of suicide, help to get help for someone in crisis, understand the Good Samaritan law, learn how to administer Narcan, as well as receive 2-dose box with support information and resources. People of all ages from all towns are welcome to attend. Please email Kenise Coker, West Hartford, at westhhartfordct.gov, or register at the Health District, 860-561-7900. I actually went to this, to a training that they did, and I did learn a lot, and it's valuable for everybody, especially if you have teenage children. I think it's especially helpful. Welcome to kindergarten. Attention parents and caregivers of the kindergarten class 2023-24 who will be 5 years old on or before January 1st, 2024. And please join us Monday, January 23rd, 6:30 to 8 in the Town Hall Auditorium. And Irene Garneau is at WHPS, is taking, anyway, you can email her with any questions. Universal Declaration of Human Rights celebration will take place on January 12th at 6 p.m. This is the 74th anniversary, and our Human Rights Commission has been a leader on this, and the reading of the document and music by Connor's Voices of the World Choir are featured. I unfortunately have to go to a dedication at UConn, but the Deputy Mayor will be presenting a proclamation. Join hashtag NOH8 movement. Add your face to the fight for equal human rights. They will hold an open photo shoot at Playhouse on Park, 6 to 8 p.m. With Paula Vogel's Indecent. I'm not sure. That might have been canceled. I'm not sure. I think that might be. Oh, no. Tickets are on sale for Indecent, which runs from January 25th to February 26th. Patrons can opt for a 3-show subscription. And then there's some words in here I'm not sure I should say on this channel, so I'm gonna let you look it up. Okay. It's art. It's art. Yeah, right. Get out of here. Okay. St. Patrick's Day Parade fundraiser will take place on March 11th. Ed Carr has been selected as West Hartford's marshal, and Eric Feeney has been chosen as the honoree. That's really wonderful. I'm so proud of them. And they will be recognized at a reception on January 28th at 6:30 at Town Hall Auditorium. The event is BYOB. Admission is $25. Winter Food Drive, the United Methodist Church is holding a food. Do you want to take that?
No, we're hosting a food drive. I believe it's January, February, March.
Exactly.
Right, and then it supports the food pantry, the West Hartford Food Pantry. And the nice thing is that the downstairs is not open 24/7. We have a box outside, so you can so it's convenient. You can drop off the goods, and then we'll bring it right over here. So especially if you're in the Elmwood area, it saves you you have it sitting in the car for weeks, meaning to get there, just stop by the church, drop it off in the drop-off box outside, and we'll get it out here for you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. And if you have in your car or can shop and pick some up, spaghetti, pasta sauce, peanut butter, and jelly. I always think of Mr. Dodge with jelly because he bought several cases of jelly once. It was really great. Canned fruit and vegetables, applesauce, rice, canned tuna, meat, beans, toothpaste, soups, probably soaps too, soups, and laundry detergent. So anyway, but it is so needed and appreciated. And what happens after the holidays, people forget that there are people in need, and that hunger and in need for support doesn't go away. So please remember. Mr. Sweeney.
I would like to acknowledge Mr. Zdanowicz's daughter for being named captain of the Yukon track team. I think that is a well-deserved proud dad moment.
We are really bragging about her. It's awesome. She's amazing. Yeah. All right. Anything? Okay. Then if there are nothing further, without objection, I move we adjourn. Is there any objection? We are adjourned. Have a good night.